starting to record right now. So, again, welcome aboard. I'm going to be starting with actually sharing some figures and some stats, starting with the fact that a study that was done where you take some averages of your lifetime experience. On average, you get to spend from birth until the age of 22 years old in education or growth and education, obviously. And then if you take an average of the retirement age, which is on average is 65, you end up spending 43 years of your life between the date you complete your education and the date where you actually retire, 43 years of your life. Research have shown, ladies and gentlemen, that on average, a person, you out there, get to change your career 5 to 7 times. You get to change your career 5 to 7 times on average. So, with that in mind, another piece of research have demonstrated that 30% of you out there on average get to change your career or your job, predominantly your job, once every 12 months. This piece of statistic or study that was done before the corona, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason I wanted to illustrate that for you here is to show you the magnitude and the myriad of how many times you are potentially going or have changed your career. What does that mean? It means that change is almost inevitable. Career change is going to happen sooner, whether or later, whether you're going to be above the average statistic or below the average statistic. Career change or job at least is going to happen. So the earlier you embrace that thought, the better off is going to be for you to kind of put yourself in the mindset of change. Another piece of research I wanted to share with you that was conducted by Gallup International, and they have done this research on a global audience where they were actually able to identify that only 15% of a average global workforce are satisfied in their current job. 15%, ladies and gentlemen. And another layer of that research have demonstrated as well that out of the 85% who are not satisfied with their job today, 58% are willing to take a pay cut just to change their job or their career. This is how much the level of dissatisfaction has gone to. So this study again was done before the time of the corona. So imagine how would things look like after the corona, let alone during the corona. For the sake of this webinar, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to be actually asking you to think about a dream job, whether you have a specific one in mind or not, whether you have a specific one in mind or not. I want you to think about a job that you would be interested to get into. If you don't have a specific job or career in mind, I want you to imagine the emotion that you would be experiencing when you have a dream job. You may not know specifically what's that dream job or how is that going to look like, but I want you to imagine the emotion that you will be experiencing if you would have a dream job or a dream career, if there is such a thing. And we will find out later about that. So with that in mind, I would like to get to know you more by asking you a few questions, and I would love for you to participate and put your comment in the chat box. So the first question that I would ask you today is, where do you rate yourself from 1 to 10 where 10, you are super satisfied, and no, and 1, you are pretty much miserable with your current career. I'm not talking about job, I'm talking about career. What's the number that you would give to yourself when it comes to your current career? If you can leave a number in the chat box, that would be fabulous. I would really appreciate it. We have a nice group here and everyone seems to be quite interactive. So I have going from 5, 6, averages of 7, 8, right? So I'm seeing going between 7, 6 or 5, 4. So I'm gonna make a kind of a daring guess of average of 5 in general. Then I have threes now coming up. So show me the threes, the 2.5, very accurate. Thank you, Kumar. Right. Okay. So that's the first question. And I'm seeing that everyone is hovering around the middle when it comes to career satisfaction. Let's take it to another level. Now, do you have a vision if you are hovering at 5 and if you want to change your career? Do you have a vision of what would an ideal career would look like? Would you have a vision of what an ideal career would look like? 1 is you don't have any clarity, and 10, you have absolute clarity and you know what it is. So I have 10, great for Stuart, 8 for 2, 5, 1, right? So now I'm seeing more the kind of a lower numbers, 2 and 3 and 5. Then few of you are actually scoring high up, more than 8, which is fabulous and very, very interesting. Now, let's go one level deeper, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you so much for your interaction. Actually, let's talk a little bit about your biggest barrier to achieve this career vision that you have. So if you don't have a vision, your barrier can be the fact that you don't have a vision. So what would be a big barrier to you achieving your career vision? If you can leave a message on the chat box, that would be fabulous. How to get paid, Stewart, getting into the action, not knowing exactly to look for job and age, so money and education, confidence, financial stability, time, pay cuts. So this is quite interesting because if you can keep moving with the messages, that will be fabulous. In fact, if anyone wants to unmute themselves right now and speak, you may speak now or wait until the end of the webinar. Anyone else?
I start.
Steffi.
Okay, I'm Stefania. I work as an office manager for a financial consulting company.
Fabulous.
I used to work, I've worked organizing, planning events for nearly 20 years. And for me, it was not a job, because I used to do it with passion, real passion. Then I decided to change job after 20 years in the same company. I've worked 1 year in another company, then they fired me because of the economical problem of the company.
Sure.
Then I'm in this company since 3 years, and I'm learning a lot. I have to be honest. I'm not satisfied about the what I earn, the salary, and I don't know what to do right now. I mean, I would like to change, but I don't know what competencies on which competencies I should focalize.
Sure. So, so Stefania, thank you for sharing this, by the way, and for being transparent. This is quite courageous, obviously. in terms of vision of your ideal career, what did you rate? How much would you rate yourself from 1 to 10? 10, you have absolute vision, and 1, you don't have any vision.
5. I
5.
rated myself 5, yeah, because
Okay.
I'm really in the middle.
Sure. And if you want to, specify in few words, what would be the biggest block for you? Is it the lack of clarity, or what is the biggest obstacle that you have today?
Probably the lack of clarity.
The lack of clarity.
Yeah, and I'm feel pity that I don't have a degree. You know, I mean, I have a lot of experience, many years of experience, 30, but you know, there is that little thing. I mean, I could take a degree even now, but I don't know if I'm a bit scared. I don't have enough time, you know.
Mhm.
So I keep learning. I mean, through LinkedIn Learning, Internations, Coursera. I have attended many courses during the lockdown. Some
Mhm.
Vanya would like to reply to me.
Steffi, can I just interrupt there?
Yeah, sure.
Just to say, I did a master's degree when I was 50. So go for it.
Okay.
Thank you, Natalie,
good.
for sharing that.
Thank you for the advice.
So my question to you here, out of everything that is happening to you, you are at level 5 right now when it comes to career clarity, and your blockage is predominantly visibility or having clarity of,
Yeah.
of the vision,
Yeah.
right? What do you
Yeah.
think, what do you think would need for you to go from 5 to 10 or to 9? What do you think that you're missing for you to get to 5, or to get from 5 to 10 or 9?
The clarity on which skill I should focus. I mean, shall I keep being an office manager or an executive assistant for top managers, or what else?
Mm-hmm. So here's my question to you. What's the story that you're telling yourself?
Keep learning, but
Yeah,
on what? I don't know.
yeah. But
That's
what's
why I'm attending this
I'm
this
talking
webinar.
I'm talking about the inner critic story, the inner critic. You know, we all have the inner critic, and I'm gonna go into that very soon. In fact, you know, maybe you can park this topic now for a few minutes, and we can revisit in the next set of questions. How does that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I appreciate it. So
Thank you.
thank you so much. So back to the presentation, everyone, and thank you so much for obviously, making the contribution here. Through the research that we have been doing, myself and the team that is actually supporting me on that, and the many webinars that I've done, and some of them obviously with the group here, we were able to capture between 500 to 700 respondents through the forms that we have been putting out. And that's one of the reasons we are putting the forms out there, because we're capturing data and we're capturing research. And we were able to actually identify 4 major blockages that are disabling people from transitioning or changing their career. 4 main blockages. So what are these 4 main blockages after we have grouped them, all these research that we've done? So the first one is the mindset. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about that negative belief system that we have, that you have within you, that tells you, I don't have what it takes. I don't have the skills. It's a job that is advertised on LinkedIn or anywhere, where I'm not ticking all the boxes, and I have to tick all the boxes. Otherwise, I won't be qualified for me to apply to this job. You know, I don't have what it takes for me to succeed. I'm not smart enough. I'm not intelligent enough. I don't have the mental capacity for me to actually go ahead and further my education. I don't have the mental capacity for me to go ahead and go beyond my comfort zone. or it's too late for me, right? It's too late for me to go ahead and do anything beyond what I've always done for the past many years that I've had in my career, so to speak. Now, the other segment that we have actually classified is the uncertainty. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, what you don't know, you actually don't know. So one of the main reasons that disable people from taking risks in their life and their career is the fact and the matter that the future is unknown. And now, more than ever, with the corona, is becoming harder and harder and more complex and more, stakes are high for people to actually change or commit to a risk or do something beyond their comfort zone, beyond their comfort zone. And then it's about the visibility or knowing what we want to do, knowing what's the right career step for us. What is it that I'm going to be able to do where I'm going to be feeling fulfilled or on my purpose when it comes to my career? The next thing is capacity. I'm talking about you being so busy and not having time for you to make any change or any difference on your routine, basically. And to some extent, it's completely understandable. You have your family, you have your routine, you have your commitment, you have your education, you have your community, you have all the chores and all the, all the time that you have committed yourself to do things beyond your career. At the same time, you have your distraction time, which is your Netflix series as well as the social media, right? Let's not forget about that. And the last piece, which is also a main blockage, is the financials. And I want to make a very educated guess here that every single one of you out there actually have a financial commitment of some sort that can stall you or disable you from making a career transition, from making a career change, let alone thinking about taking the risk to get out of your comfort zone. Because the last thing you want is to tap into your life savings, right? So let's try to unpack more the science behind what is disabling you from moving forward. And here we're talking about the mindset. So, ladies and gentlemen, every time you're going to be undergoing a change, and if that change is going to be incorporating a high level of risk, chances are that you're going to be activating part of your brain that is going to be stopping you or pulling you away from taking that risk, from getting out of that your comfort zone. And that's your inner critic or the saboteur. And the reason you have that actual fear or negative belief or negative emotion is because there is an inherent negative belief that you have told yourself, you have convinced yourself subconsciously about you getting out of your comfort zone, be it any of the blocks that we have spoke about before, and it could be more than that. You don't have what it takes, you want to stay in your comfort zone, it's too uncertain out there, you don't have time, or you don't have the right financials, or you are running very thin on the financials and you don't want to take that risk. But what is the science really behind your inner critics or your saboteurs? So this is to help you understand the anatomy of your saboteur. So this is a picture of 3 neurons. Your brain has a massive network of neuron. Let me be more specific. Research have shown that there is 100 billion neuron in your brain, 100 billion neuron in your brain. Every neuron is connected to another neuron, ladies and gentlemen, through a synapse. And each neuron has 5,000 synapse that enable 5,000 connection possibility to other neurons. So imagine the vast or the magnitude of that network, the magic of that network in your brain. Imagine that. So what happened is that whenever there is a event that occur, and this is based on the Hebbian theory, the neuron that fire together, they wire together. What am I talking about? What do I mean by fire together and wire together? Whenever a neuron or event happen, signal is going to be entering a neuron. And whenever there is a response to that event, be it emotion, behavior, action, thought process, whatever it is, there is another connection to another neuron that is the effect of that cause, which is that event. And that's what we are talking about, firing and wiring together. So what's your reaction? So whenever you have a reaction to a specific event, you have more than one neuron connecting together, generating your reaction to that event. And the reason you end up building a sabotaging inner critic voice is whenever a event that causes negative emotion or some kind of a fear that occur, and you react in a negative, or your saboteur get, initiated, so to speak, this is when you start creating a specific pathway or circuitry. And the more you repeat that circuitry, the more that pathway becomes a habit. So that red matter that you see that wraps around the neuron, ladies and gentlemen, they call it myelin. And myelin is like the broadband connection of the brain. So whenever you have a habit that is formed, and that comes with repetition, so repetition of action, repetition of thought, or repetition of behavior. In the case of the inner critic, is a thought or a emotion or a thought process, so to speak, which is that voice, that inner critic. So if you go to an event, which is, if you experience an event which is thought of or exposure to this webinar, change your career, right? And in your head, something tells you that, well, you better off staying in your comfort zone because it's too certain out there. And if this is something that you have been doing for years and years and years and years, you have already built a habit of thinking that way, of behaving that way. That voice has been kind of almost ingrained, but we will know, we will realize now that it's actually not a permanent habit, and it can be changed. So based on the neuroplasticity theory, the synapses that are connecting two neurons together, they are not permanent connection. They can change, and they can only change once you change that habit. That's why you have a picture of another neuron here, ladies and gentlemen. And this is when you actually realize that in order for you to break a habit, that a negative habit, let's say, that you have today, is for you to create another habit. So whatever event happened, you need to change the circuitry from going through this pathway to another pathway. That's why the client that I work with, the first thing that I get them to do is to unpack and to understand their stories that they say to themselves, the negative belief that they have about themselves, the sabotaging voice that speaks to them, and then try to understand where is that coming from, what's the source behind that, and then introduce another voice, which would be the sage voice within you, and we all have that. And that other voice will be the different circuitry. So when you create that different circuitry on and on and on again, you'll be able to actually break the habit of being yourself, which is that negative self of yours, the sabotaging self of yours. Now, let's talk about another piece of information in line with this, which is the IOS, or the internal operating system. We spoke about the event earlier, and whenever an event happens, it goes through the network of your brain, and which is your IOS. So your internal operating system is the network of the neurons, the network of your brain, the circuitries that you have in your brain that actually analyze and give the output basically. So the output in this case of an event is a meaning, and that meaning can lead into either a unconscious or a conscious response. So event happened, your iOS interpret that event, and you get a meaning from that. That meaning goes into a conscious or unconscious response. Now, research have shown, because of all the automation that you have in your brain, you get to spend 90% of your day on auto response. Can you believe that? 90% of your day, you spend it on auto response in your unconscious brain, because everything is kind of automated basically. So as a result of that unconscious response or conscious response, there is a certain set of behavior or emotion as a result of that. And this behavior or emotion gives you a kind of a result. Now, what you out there or average person out there believe is that whenever event happen, the response will be coming out automatically from the unconscious or the conscious, but they don't realize that it gets through a filter. And your job, in order for you to start disabling or interrupting the pattern of your inner negative beliefs or thoughts or the saboteur, is to actually hack into this circuit and rewire the circuit. And that's what I'm talking about here. So you may be actually wondering, why am I talking about this? Like what qualifies me to talk about career change predominantly here? I want to share a bit about my story for anyone who doesn't know about my background. And I'm going to go very quickly through that, but I'm going to be highlighting about the point of change and the transition in my life. I was born into a war-ridden country, and I decided at a younger age that I wanted to become a global person. So I moved from my home country to Australia at a younger age, clearly, as you can see. And I decided to make that my new home, but that wasn't possible for me. So I had to go through the risk of me going out of my comfort zone to get resourceful and potentially find a way to stay in the country. So I end up working in something that is not in line with my career direction, but it's a great skill to have. I know one of you out there is actually a cook or a chef. So that's what I've done. I started to become a cook, and that's how I ended up staying in Australia. Eventually, I climbed my career ladder and I got to a position where working for Toyota. From that space, I was still being haunted by that desire of becoming a global person. But that was not still a possibility because the stakes were very high for me to leave the country because there was no way for me to get transition through my company. So what ended up happening, ladies and gentlemen, is that I took the risk. Why? Because the pain of continuing doing what I'm doing, of me staying dreaming and thinking about how would life look like as a global person, as an international person, as an expatriate, because that's really what I wanted to become. How would life look like? I've never had the answer until the pain of not doing, of the cost of inaction became so significant within me. And that's how I end up taking the risk, getting out of my comfort zone. And I started working for Louis Vuitton. They say, careful what you wish for. Well, I end up living in 5 countries eventually. And now I came full circle back to Australia after I moved to all these countries because my direction in life have changed. Now imagine yourself that you have gotten, and I'm sure a lot of you out there have gotten to a career state where you are in a position that was quite comfortable, quite secure. You have all the right perks that you would require, and you have the financial security, and that's what matters. But then you get visited by this desire, and most of you, when I asked you earlier, do you have a clear visibility of your career or your ideal career? Few of you answered that, yes, I have a clear visibility. But then the question is, what stopped you from getting to that ideal career? And obviously, to my experience working with all these people that I've been working with for some time now, is the mindset. So I had to step out of my comfort zone, and that's how I got to become a coach, a mentor, and a speaker. Obviously, working predominantly as a business coach and a career transition coach. But before I pursue with the presentation, I wanted to share as well, ladies and gentlemen, that the question that predominantly stopped me from achieving my career dreams is the following: what would others think about me? What about people's judgment? What about my family, my loved ones? What about my colleagues? What would they think of me if I'm going to be changing my career to something that would perhaps doesn't make sense for anyone, but it does make sense to you because it's in line with your desire, with what you want to do. So in my case, what ended up happening, and I want to ask you if you relate to that, the further I was growing in my career, the more I was declining with my level of happiness or satisfaction. We saw earlier, 15% of people are actually satisfied in their job. What is that telling you? What that piece of statistic is actually telling you out there? And these people might be doing well financially in their career progression and so on. Like they would have got a promotion, but still be unhappy 6 months or 1 year later. So it all comes down to that mindset. It all comes down to the stories that we are telling ourselves. I want to share with you a very quick, and obviously the saboteur is what drives you, what drives that story, right? Very quickly, I want to share with you a very interesting story. This is the story of this peasant. This peasant who wanted to access a space called the law, where he can gain all the knowledge, all the success, and all the wealth of the world, basically. So he'd been told about this space, and he traveled for weeks and months in order for him to get to that space. And when he got to that space, ladies and gentlemen, he actually realized that the space is surrounded by a fortress. And at the front of the fortress, there was a gatekeeper. And that gatekeeper, ladies and gentlemen, he looked really, really, really scary. So what ended up happening is that the peasant, that simple person, he went to the gatekeeper and he asked him nicely, "Mr. Gatekeeper, can you let me into the law?" And the gatekeeper looked at him with angry eyes and he told him, "You're not allowed to go in." And then the peasant or the simple person asked him, "Can I try to go in later?" And he said to him, the gatekeeper, "You may try later should you desire, but you have to go through me first. And if you cross this gate, there are other gatekeepers for other gates that you're going to have to go through later. And I don't even dare to look at the one after me." So the peasant decided to sit on the side and wait for someone else to come and access the law through that gate and see how is he going to interact with the gatekeeper. Weeks went by, month went by, and no one came. And throughout the whole time, that simple person, that peasant, was actually trying to be friendly with the gatekeeper. He was bringing him food. He was giving him gifts. He was nurturing him. He was giving him everything that would make him feel comfortable. And every now and then, he would make an attempt to go into the gate, and he would be standing in his face, and he goes to him, "You're going to have to go through me first in order for you to go into the gate." So after that, years and years went by, ladies and gentlemen, and the simple person became very old, very feeble, and very weak. And he was still now laying down on the side of that gate. And he knew that his time has come to leave this world. So he called the gatekeeper and he asked him with a weak voice, "Gatekeeper, I'm very curious. I've waited all these years for someone to come in to access that door, and no one ever came in. Why? What is the secret? The gatekeeper looked at him with pity and he said to him, "This gate, my friend, was created only for you to access it, but you never mustered the courage for you to go through me to access this gate. And now that you're gonna die, this gate will be closed behind you and no one will be obviously accessing this gate." So my question to you, and the reason I'm sharing that story with you, ladies and gentlemen, is who's your gatekeeper in your mind? What is your gatekeeper telling you every day? And what are you feeding that gatekeeper? What stories are you telling that gatekeeper? Or what is he telling you about you? So I wanted to share that story because a lot of us, all of us, including me, and that's the reality, we have a gatekeeper in a way or another in our head. And my gatekeeper got me to a stage where I experienced years and years of psychological pain, going into therapists and so on, and insomnia and so on, and severe pain, until I decided, and I rang the alarm bell and I said, it's do or die. But guess what? It doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. So the next thing I wanted to speak about how to gain visibility or clarity about your next career steps is the concept of the career ikigai. Now, what do I mean by that? This has something that has been created by Mark Wynn. Perhaps some of you have come across that. So I'm going to go through this concept fairly quickly, but it's quite interesting. And I've been using it a lot as a tool, myself and other coaches out there, to help people unpack and get more clarity about what is it that they want to pursue in their career as a next step, because that will give you a compass, a direction for you to take with regards to what is going to be a fulfilling career for yourself. So doing what you love and doing what you're good at makes up your passion, according to this model. Doing what you are good at and doing what you can get paid for makes up your profession. Doing what you can get paid for and following what the world needs makes up your vocation. And what the world needs, along with what you love, makes up your mission. And the intersection of all these circles is actually your ikigai. So this is actually, if you split it in half, you will realize that the lower half is based on external circumstances. It's not controlled by you, it's controlled by your external environment. Whereas the upper half is actually controlled by yourself, which is what you are good at and what you love eventually. This gives you a snapshot of where you are today, meaning that ikigai or your ikigai changes with time, especially what the world needs, especially what you love. Because what the world needs before the corona was one thing, what the world needs after the corona and that digital, revolution, so to speak, is another thing. And obviously it's always moving and changing, as I mentioned. And it helps you to know yourself and know the market. So by asking yourself some complex question like, what's my passion? What's my mission? It's easier to ask yourself, what do I love and what am I good at, in order for you to identify your mission? Or what do I love and what the world needs, for you to identify what can be your mission, so to speak. So what end up happening in most cases is people who wanted to change their career or start a new career, they end up predominantly following what they can get paid for. So when you start from that space, focusing on what can I get paid for, what end up happening that you might live a comfortable career or financial situation, but you will be confronted or experiencing emptiness, so to speak. Whereas if you focus on what the world needs, or if you start only on what the world needs, what end up happening is that you might be feeling the excitement, but you will be feeling a lot of uncertainty because, as I mentioned earlier, what the world needs now is different than what the world needs after the corona. What you love, if you only focus on what you love, financially, you may not be able to sustain that career. Whereas same as what you can get paid for, if you only focus on that, you may get the satisfaction, but you will have that feeling of uselessness, so to speak. So the secret is to actually start with what you love and to incorporate all the circles together. All the circles together. That's really what actually drives the successful Ikigai experience. So they speak about the art of fulfillment. What do I mean by the art of fulfillment? So this Ikigai, ladies and gentlemen, is actually a philosophy. It's not so much a technique or a tool that you utilize. It's a philosophy. So once you are able to identify your Ikigai or the intersection of the four, this not only applies on your career, but it should also apply on your personal life. Here, I give the example about a chef, actually three Michelin star chef. His name is, it will come to me, the name, but he's actually based in Japan. And today he's about 95 years old. And he's been rolling sushis for the past, apparently, 80 years of his life. 80 years of his life. So for someone to be, making sushi and derivatives of sushi for the last 80 years of his life, that's got to be more than career. It's got to be a lifestyle. That's got to be a philosophy that the person has. And in fact, his name is Jiro. And in fact, there was a Netflix documentary about him that you can go out there and watch. But the guy is a celebrity right now, and I hope he's still going to be around after the corona, because I would love to go there and actually experience one of his set menu. So it's a volume knob, Ikigai. So the closer you are to your Ikigai, as I said, it's a compass. So the closer you are to your Ikigai, the more fulfilled you're going to be feeling, not only on your career, also on your personal life. And like I said earlier, you have the internal and the external. You can only control the internal aspect of the Ikigai, which is what you love and what you are good at, what you love to a certain extent, of course. You got to be constantly focusing on what the world needs. And once you identify what the world needs, then you are able to try to identify, am I good at what the world needs today? Is there something that the world needs today that I'm good at it? Or the other question you can ask yourself, is there something that what the world needs today, I feel that I'm attracted to it, something that I love? Let's say, you are giving my previous example as a finance person, what the world needs today is more of, AI or more work related to automation and machine learning and all of that. If that is something that I would be passionate about, but I don't know nothing about machine learning, I should be getting myself better at gaining that knowledge that the world actually needs. So going back to one of the blockages that we spoke about earlier is that I don't have a visibility. I don't know what I'm going to do. Once you start breaking down this wide, dark cloud that warps your mind by small pieces, which is what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, what the world needs, and try to bring them all together to form a compass, like I said, a map that will enable you to learn which direction you're going to be taking. That's not going to give you a job description or a job title. This is going to give you a compass or a direction, so to speak. So it helps in the visibility. I have experienced it myself firsthand, and I have been doing this work for some time now with, I've done it actually this year with more than 75 professionals, and I have seen the result firsthand with them, so to speak. And the least thing it does give is that you're on the right path, you're not on the right path, what should be the right path, and what are the questions that you need to ask yourself in order for you to learn what you should be what you should be good at, and that will be in line with what you love. All right. So Ikigai and values, very important point. Ikigai has to be in line with your values, and your values is your blueprint. Imagine that you are building a career, which is going to be a building, a tower, a bridge, or whatever it is. You need to have your right foundation, and that foundation is your values. It's going to be built on your values, because if it's not in line with your values, you go back into the category of the 85% of people that are not satisfied, according to Gallup international study that we saw earlier. So that has to be in line with your value. So let's go back to the main blocks or categories that actually stop people from pursuing their career. So we said that the first one is the mindset. So we spoke about the mindset relentlessly in this webinar. And the most important thing that I want to highlight here is understanding the anatomy of your saboteur, ladies and gentlemen. Once you understand, biologically, the structure of how things actually work, and what is it going to take you for you to break that pattern of thinking or going down the direction of negative thought process, in line with your negative belief, in line with what you have told yourself once upon a time, or someone said something about you once upon a time, and you continue believing in that, and obviously absorbing that as a belief about yourself. And this is extremely important, because if you don't manage to get the right mindset, you won't be able to muster the courage and face your gatekeeper. About the uncertainty, as I mentioned, you know what you know, but you don't know what you don't know. So they say one of the main reasons people do not get to change or experience change in their life is because the future is unknown. So one of the tools, or one of the possibility that you can have access to, is to actually visualize or construct a future for yourself. Whether what would your future look like if you don't do any action and you continue doing what you're doing? Because you know better than me, definition of sanity: you continue doing what you're doing, you continue getting what you're getting, right? So the reality here is that you want to construct a future of worst case scenario and best case scenario. And when you are able to kind of see how would that future look like, then it will not be uncertain anymore. Because if you go down the path of the worst case scenario, and you know how to deal with what could happen when things get to the worst, this is when you are able to actually realize that, hang on, this uncertainty is not so much an uncertainty. I know what can happen to me at the worst case scenario, and I know how to deal with that. And that's what's going to happen. So, and you don't have to make the change then. You just marinate on that. And that's the key thing. It's not about, because if you're going to be making that change immediately, part of your brain, which comes back to here, is going to stop you, and it's going to block you, because it's so powerful, because it's been doing that for years and years. And this is part of our nature, the fight or flight. You will be protected. You will be preserved by that entity in your brain that actually, they call it the sabotaging mind. So the sabotaging mind is to keep you safe. But sometimes what it does, it kind of disable your progress as well, because it could interpret a healthy move as something that would get you out of your comfort zone. So you want to get yourself familiar with the uncertain, ladies and gentlemen. That's the key thing. Then the Ikigai, which is one of the many tools out there for you to be able to unpack and understand what is actually going to give you the clarity, what is actually going to give you the visibility of your ideal career, or the compass that's going to take you to your ideal career, so to speak. The next thing is the capacity. Well, again, there are many tools out there, and one of them is the non-value add model, which I picked up throughout my experience working for Toyota and understanding the lean manufacturing model. this tool gets you to kind of take a snapshot of your week and understand how do you spend your week. What is the waste in your week, meaning the activities that are not so much important and not urgent, and what are the activity that you need to spend time on it beyond your job, beyond your routine, beyond what you do normally. But then the other question that I would ask you, so I would ask you, what do you do after 9:30? Like, how important for you to make that change? And if it's important for you to make that change, what's your commitment to make that change? Therefore, what are you doing after 9:30? I work with someone, in fact, two people, but a gentleman who is who's got four kids, sorry, and a stay-home wife to take care of the kids. Obviously, it's kind of hard to get nannies nowadays, a full-time one. So the person is completely hating his career. He's been doing what he's doing for 17 years, and he's been working in IT. And eventually, he wanted to transition his career, but he doesn't have the capacity. So we worked together on identifying times in his week where he identified that time as a possible distraction or waste. And he started replacing that time by time for research, time for self-help, time for growth, and so on and so forth. And that's how the person start making availability throughout his week in order for him to do the work, to work on transitioning his career. Eventually, the person end up, starting a venture as an entrepreneur. He's still doing his job, but he started also an entrepreneurial venture, which is in line with his ikigai. And now he's actually, working on monetizing and making that venture financially more sustainable, so to speak. And this is where he is going to be looking into having the transition. But at the end of the day, the difference between someone in stasis and someone like that person, or someone who have already progressed towards changing their career, is the first step. The difference is just that one step that you make, because that step, ladies and gentlemen, creates energy. Movement creates energy, creates momentum, creates traction, creates progress. It's just that, and basic physics we're talking about here. That first step that you gotta take, that first email, that first research, that first program that you're gonna sign up for, that first university degree or college or anything that you gotta do. And you gotta maintain the momentum. You don't wanna be losing the momentum. Now, the last piece is about the financials. The financials, very, very critical one. Obviously, there are many ways to manage that. There is they speak about the 10-minute rule, the 10% rule. And the 10% rule is 10% of my salary that is coming in today, I'm going to be allocating that to my career transition experience. And what ended up happening, and this is based on a book, actually, which I recommend you to read, is called The 10% Rule. And that's a kind of an entrepreneurial book. And it recommends that, or even my recommendation when I'm working with people who are currently already in their job, is obviously not to lose their job, not to leave their job. You don't want to leave your job. In fact, I would work with them, and I have someone that I'm working with who've been for 22 years in the financing industry. A lady that I'm working with who's been in 22 years in the financing industry, and she hates her job. But we kind of transitioned her mindset from hating to I'm in transition. And now all the friction that she's experiencing at work are no longer, they no longer matter, because she is going 100 kilometers an hour on her transition, on actually going from that career again to an entrepreneur, or to become an entrepreneur in her case, where that doesn't have to be the case for everyone. It could be just another career with another company that is in line with your ikigai or with your values, so to speak. So the 10% rule. So again, either I would work with the people and I say, you don't get yourself out of your job. And if you get made redundant, right, is you gotta, you can go out there and get yourself a part-time job or a casual job that would bring some kind of a stability or income stability just to pay your basic expenses while you are transitioning or while you are working on that transition. Again, if you're going to be, if you want to become an entrepreneur, if it's going to be the different direction, which is obviously a job in a company, then it will be a different conversation. You can still take that part-time job or that casual job while you are actually really understanding and getting deeper into what is really the career that you want, and go out there and obviously get that. So with that, I want to say, again, don't take that from me, take that from all the people that I've been working with for some time now. As I said, almost 75 in the professional I have connected with this year only. And basically what I have learned from this experience is the Jim Rohn, who is the mentor of Tony Robbins. He have that saying where he says, if you're going to rely on your growth on randomness, you're going to live most of your life in the land of mediocrity. If you're going to rely on your growth on randomness, you're going to live most of your life in the land of mediocrity. So I've seen it a lot where people actually attend the webinar, read a book, do something, dabble randomly, trying to kind of get that wake-up call. But what's going to end up happening, and this is without a fail, every professional that came to me, they came to me because the level of pain that they are experiencing is so much so that they cannot tolerate it anymore. And that's exactly what happened to me. And my mission is to actually help people not to get to that. But unfortunately, it's always the case. It's always the case. It's amazing. So the last set of questions that I want to ask you here is, if you can share in the chat box, please, how important for you or how interesting for you to get to discover your ikigai from 1 to 10, where 10 is something that would interest you and 1 is something that would not be interesting for you, obviously. Thank you for sharing your thoughts here. I really appreciate it. Fabulous. I can see predominantly most of you are hovering on the high level on 10, 9, and so on. Awesome. Great. So the next question that I would ask is, do you want to make that ikigai a financial viable reality? Is that something that would interest you? I can hear you, Stuart. You're saying yes, 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 and yes. I love that. Viable meaning sustainable. Viable
what
meaning
does viable mean?
Viable meaning sustainable, meaning a
Okay.
reality, meaning
Okay.
accessible, feasible.
Okay.
No worries. Fabulous, fabulous. So I can see certainly that all of you out there that are, another reason why you actually signed up for this webinar, for you to actually go ahead and, understand how to cross that line, because it's a line that needs to be crossed, and that's how it works. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is what I've got to share with you today. I would love for you to connect with me via social media. You can either find me through this username on all the social media, or using your phone camera, scan one of these barcodes, and you can find me on one of the social media. I would love to connect with you there. That would be fantastic. And as I promised to you, this is my offer for everyone here, is the first 5 people that actually send me an email right now, the first 5 people that send me an email right now, they will be receiving a free 45-minute Ikigai coaching going into the direction of their Ikigai. And that would start with a set of questionnaire for them to get to the session. So questionnaire before the session, and then the session of 45-minute working with them on the Ikigai. So please send me an email, info@laurentkababe.com, with the subject Internations offer. You can say whatever you want, but the first 5 emails that I will receive, I will actually reply to you within the next 24 hours, advising you whether you qualified or not. And I hope that the first 5 will qualify, because that's what it is. And obviously from the people that are who signed up to the form, and that's my commitment to people who signed up on the form. And the reason I ask people to sign up to the form is because of the research that I'm doing. Because as you saw, whoever answered that form, you will see some question related to this webinar, related to classification, categorization, understanding what's blocking people, what is behind your blocking points, so to speak. So with that, I'm going to be thanking everyone, and I would I want to open the mic for everyone who wants to ask a question. Feel free to ask if you want to make an interaction. But before that, can you put one word? Do me that favor, please. Put one word, genuinely, what that describes your experience of this in this webinar. One word that describes your experience in this webinar, please. And that's just your feedback to me. I would appreciate that. Fabulous. Anyone who can, have the energy to put one word. I know it's kind of still midday. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, everyone. Thank you. Fabulous. So if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, we're a community here. And by all means, Nadia, if you want to help me with the interaction, if someone wants to ask it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll ask one question from the chat, which was, I noticed it, someone just asked now. And it was from Rachel, who said, is the saboteur, the gatekeeper the same person?
Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly right. Exactly. 100%. 100%. And the reason I have been saying that this poor man was nurturing him, was feeding him all the time, is I'm making a point here that we get to do this. You get to do this out there. I have Vanya who raised her hand. You want to unmute yourself and ask a question, or you prefer to ask a question on the chat?
Yeah. No, I can ask a question if you can hear me.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate it very much, and I congratulate you for the wisdom you shared with us. And this is just the beginning, I suppose. I wanted to ask you whether there is also this kind of moment of the relations with the other people. And because I thought that the blockage also can be the boss at the beginning, I said that very much I believe in a strong leadership who is guiding us, and who not only gives us the chance to grow, but to make every one of the people surrounding him or her, let's say, number one, not just a few of them, and then just working with them. What is the case at the moment with me is that in the COVID, often I work alone. But also on the top of it, she as a leader just works with several persons. But I think that there are much more opportunities for a teamwork, and I believe in teamwork. And I think that the blockage can be very much how the leader treats you, or if it's envy you, or it's a competitor, or it's just these people yes, the other people no. So I ask you for the burden of this career development, because this is not only us. You see, even in COVID, you see, for example, even if you don't want to walk with mask, you are obliged to walk with mask. Even if you're a street where there is nobody, you have to put the mask. What is this?
Right. So let me share something with you, very interesting, a theory. And now I want to, I want to speak, the truth based on, not the truth, obviously. I want to speak on my experience based on all the people that I've been working with. So there is the concept of what they call the drama triangle. Okay, so imagine that this is a triangle. Can you see the screen? My drawing?
Yes.
Okay, so here in the drama triangle, which is developed by a scientist, his name, psychiatrist and a psychologist called Karpman. So he says that in each corner of the drama triangle, there is a personality, and we all have that within us. The first personality is the savior. The second personality is the victim. And the third personality is the prosecutor. So, and they all work in sync together. Against every victim, there is a prosecutor. And for every victim, there need to be a savior. And vice versa, for every prosecutor, there need to be a savior that would actually come and eliminate him or whatever. And they say the key, and this is a webinar on its own, which I will be sharing that, hopefully in due course through Nadia. They say that the key for a person to let go of any of these persona is to actually come to the middle. And coming to the middle is actually changing your perspective on how you do things. So my answer here is I've heard this before. This is not the first time that I come across this. There's no perfect human being, therefore there's no perfect boss. And there's always going to be a boss that would be, or someone at work that would make your work, your job, your career a actual a burden or create a burden. But then what is the story that you are telling yourself? Because if I speak to the to the 10 years old version of you, basically, and I tell her the story about what's happening with your boss today, maybe her perspective will be completely different. Or if I ask the version of you at your 70 years old, or let's say end of your life, basically, to make it more kind of a confronting, maybe she would have a different perspective altogether. So the point that I'm trying to make is there are strategies that you can take, and this is obviously a different conversation in how you deal with your boss, but it's extremely important, and it's your job to unpack what is happening in your subconscious when it comes to dealing with this situation. And this is just one model of many models, basically, which is called the drama triangle. But the point that I'm trying to make here is it's about what's the story that you're telling yourself? Where is that story taking you? And there are facts and there are non-facts. The facts are things that are measured. So the action that the boss have made and all the, I don't know what's the background of the story, but then there are the non-facts, and the non-facts is always interesting how you interpret that. And if I create the persona of you that has a different perspective, so it could be saboteur-driven persona, it could be sage-driven persona. So if I create a persona that is different than the saboteur-driven persona, maybe you would have a different perspective about that. Maybe you would have a different perspective about that. But again, this is a longer conversation. But I agree with you. There are bosses out there that can be a detrimental reason for people to either quit their job or actually do something different. But how to deal with that? It's actually there's two dimension: internal and external. External, looking at the facts, looking at tasks or things or steps that you can do, uncomfortable conversations that you could have. And that's another thing about you getting out of your comfort zone. Because if you're going to get out of your comfort zone, you don't want to get out of your comfort zone only on one aspect, on many aspects of your life. And again, the client or the people that I work with, the most important thing that I do with them is to help them to start stretching their comfort space, or so their level of comfort, so to speak. Okay, I hope that this kind of gives some indication to you. Okay, so I haven't heard back from you, but I will give the mic. You're welcome, Vanya. My pleasure. And I would love to connect with you outside of here. You know how to reach me now. You've got my email should you want to. Now, the drama triangle, answering Michelle, just type in on Google drama triangle, and there are hundreds of materials out there. I don't have a specific one on me right now, but just type in drama triangle and the actual scientist behind it. I believe his surname is Karpman, Karpman, Karpman. I'm sure you can find it, Michelle. So I have two people who raised their hand. I have Stuart and I have Kumar. Stuart, you want to go first?
Sure. Thanks, Laurent. This was really good. Yeah, good to see you too as well. I like to repeat these events because I don't always get, there's so much information that it's overwhelming, and it's kind of like peeling an onion. And also, like, you know, paint by numbers. You know, you got a bunch of numbers and you don't know exactly what the picture is until you connect all the dots. Today I had an epiphany of I've got 75% of my ikigai handled.
Nice.
I have always known what it, thank you. I've known what it is since I've been 13 years old. I've actually tried it, didn't work at it. Why? Because I couldn't get paid for it. So today, what struck me was the, you know, you got all these concepts. It's one point. It's the non-value added model that's preventing me from being monetized. And I spend a great portion of my day, you know, looking at useless videos on social media because whatever, instead of working at what I want to do, what I know I want to do, what I love, and what I'm very, very good at. And how do you transition from just knowing that into making that a reality? Is this more like a Kaizen thing where you just take small steps, or I want to make this pay? You know, I have a job that I'm miserable at. It serves a purpose because I have a permanent contract for the first time in 25 years. It's a soul destroying job, but I need a medical procedure, which I'm going to have in November and December. And it's going to pay for it. And it's going to allow me to do that. So there's a purpose for it. But after I recover, I want out. And how do I transition from, you know, making that point, you know, by putting more time into that, which I know I want to do, into getting paid for it, to monetize it, as you put?
Yeah. So great question. And that's the, you know, I guess that's the $1 million question, right?
Yes.
There you go.
I'd settle for $500,000.
So look, it's a combination of everything. So there was the techniques, there was the tools, but the most important thing is the mindset. Once more, the people that I work with, and some of them are in the group that you and I attend together, obviously, are actually got to a stage where, like I said, the level of pain that they have got to is so much so that there's nowhere else to go. So what ended up happening, Stuart, is that because your past experience, or one of your past experience, or your inherent belief is that I can never make money out of music or out of my passion, that creates a circuit in your brain that gets you to start procrastinating. So whenever you're going to be confronted by this actual experience of creating music, of developing, of doing something, that circuit takes you to memory, experience, something in the past where you need to break that pattern. You have created a circuit that whenever that circuit gets activated, which is the thought, the idea of me going into the creating, developing music, being an artist, so to speak, I automatically associate that. I have a neural association with pain. So whenever you have that, you're going to end up procrastinating. In order for you to do that, to kind of overcome that, you have to actually... Sorry, if you can
Je reçois
unmute
un
yourself.
truc, je dis merde. Il y a quelqu'un qui rentre sur notre compte. Bon.
Sorry, excuse me. I think there's someone on.
7,
Let
4,
me just mute the audience.
5, 4. Attends, je vérifie, c'est bien.
The moderator can
9, 1, 7,
shut
4,
it.
5.
Okay, Laurent, I muted all the audience because I felt there was an interruption. Do you want to unmute yourself and continue?
Thank you so
Laurent,
much for doing
you
that.
want-
Thank you so much for doing that. And yeah, if you can just keep an eye, but it's good. We got to know what's happening on his end. So Stuart, I guess the same. I go back to the same point. You got to hack into your brain. You got to unpack, identify what's the inherent story. You got to hack it into your mindset, reframe that thought process to it for you to know what is causing that pain. What is the story or the stories that you have been telling yourself that is disabling you from moving towards the direction of working towards your passion, man. So that's the first thing. Then you got the technical pieces, which is create a map, or the work that I do with the people that I'm collaborating with is we actually create a map of their week, which is it's like a quadrant, just to kind of illustrate quickly. It's a quadrant. So now I'm not able to illustrate. It's a quadrant, basically, where in that part of the quadrant, you have the activities that are urgent and important. This is based on Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And this part here is the non-urgent. And this part here is the non-important. So we go into identifying what sits in here. This is the space where people end up spending their time on social media, on Netflix, and so on and so forth. This space in here occupy 80% of your week on average, or thereabout. Some people 70%, some people 60%. But the remaining free time that you have, that should be divided between the two, you end up spending, guess what? 85% of your free time on this. So that's what you want to unpack. That's what you want to understand, basically, and try to, find out how could you let go of that space or that time that is not serving you, is not serving your purpose. But it's not easy to do that. I mean, it's not impossible to do that, because you have to first go through the gatekeeper, my friend. You have to go through the gatekeeper.
So if I understand correctly, it's more the mindset, the things from the past that are holding me back, which is allowing the saboteur to have the dominant place in my brain. And then as a secondary, it's the amount of time I spent working on my craft. Yeah. Would that be a fair summary of what
100%. 100%.
Okay.
So Stuart, let's park this and open the mic for someone else or anyone who wants to ask a question. You're welcome. I hope it helped.
Hello.
Oh.
Hi.
Hi, can I speak? My name is Najat.
Yes, go ahead.
How are you?
I'm good.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate this amazing webinar. I really learned a lot from your experience and everything you've explained so far. And I could project myself actually in this situation. Like, I left my home country at the age of 18. I went to France. I stayed there for 12 years. I moved to UK. Then now I am in Dubai for the last 10 years. And I am in the middle of career change, of asking myself questions. Am I really satisfied with what I am doing right now? I did my studies in Paris, like engineering and master's degree, but still what I am doing, I am not happy in working in financial markets and in the banking. And I found the passion about like teaching Arabic language. For example, when I do it, I don't see the time passing by. I can do it for hours and hours without counting. So your webinar here really helped me to focus more on this goal and make it my career change in the future. Thank you very much,
My pleasure.
Lauren.
My pleasure. And it's fabulous the space that you are in right now. And what is more important that you are conscious, that you are in a space where this is where you want to be, and you found what you want. So now it's about building your life and building your career projection on that.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you very much. Your webinar came at the right time, right space, and thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much again. Bye-bye.
Let's connect on social media. You and everyone else who's still there.
Sure. I already sent you an email. I hope I am among the 5 first ones.
I hope to.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
No worries. Just because of the time limitation, everyone, we'll have one more question if anyone wants to ask, and then we will wrap up. Okay?
Yes, Laurent. Hello. I'm saying fine. Laurent, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just because of the interruption, but just now, you were talking about your circuit and then the thoughts that create you said about neuro associate. You were giving insight about how it starts, your circuit, thought that you created, neuro association, and then the interruption came, and then you pick it up by saying reframe. Can you repeat just shortly that?
Yeah, sure.
That line.
So I guess going back to what I was saying in the webinar is that you have a neuro association that get created whenever an event happens. So you have an event happen, and it creates a response. It could be a behavior, an action, a thought, an emotion, or whatever it is. And when that actually happens, you have a connection that happened between several neurons through synapses. And the more this repeats, that it could be a negative effect, it could be a positive effect. But now we're focusing on the saboteur, we're focusing on the negative effect. We're focusing about the thought of you changing career, in the case of Stewart, him going into music and knowing that in the past, he didn't make, sufficient, kind of income or sustainable income from music, basically. Sorry to take your example, Stuart, but just to kind of illustrate. But anyway, the point is that for a person that had past experience with something that he is passionate about, although he's passionate, he's feeling that conflict, the yin and yang. So you have the dark side and the bright side. The bright side is that person will be finding himself in the thing that he's doing. But the dark side, that in the past he had negative experience. So negative experience created a thought process that you're not good enough. Right. What makes you feel you're going to succeed where everyone else tried and they failed, and so on and so forth, basically. And that's how the saboteur start becoming alive, more and more alive. It could be, to my experience, Mylène, if I pronounce it right.
Yes, perfectly. It's a French name.
There you go. So more than 90% of the cases that people have of that saboteur or of that negative belief start at the childhood. Someone have said something to you, right, back in the days that made you believe that you are not good enough, B, you're not important, you're not worthy, all of that. Now the job is to go into that story, unpack it, understand how it started, and start doing the healing process behind that, and start watching when does that appear in your life and under what circumstances. And with that, I need to wrap up. I know that Kumar, you said you're going to ask the question, but we have a hard stop. My pleasure. We have a hard stop in 1 minute, Kumar. I'm so sorry for that. Send me an email and ask me the question, and I'm more than happy to answer you back if that's okay with you. But otherwise, thank you everyone for everything and for your time and for your commitment. It was lovely to see you. Great to connect with you. I will be uploading the video and sharing it through Nadia, so for everyone can have access to that. And I look forward to connect with you on social media. And whether you qualify or you don't qualify, I would love to hear from you. And more than happy to connect. You can also visit my website, www.laurentkababe.com, where there you can actually book some free time with me for a quick conversation or something that you want to deal with in your career or your career transition. And it'll be something along the line of this. Okay. So Nadia, is there anything else you want to say to wrap up?
Absolutely not. I just wanted to say thank you very much again for really an amazing presentation. I'm sure you could tell the audience, you know, really found it useful. I mean, I saw life-changing. I think Vanya wrote, forgive me if I'm wrong, but I know that one participant wrote life-changing. So thank you for that. It's not every day we get to watch a life-changing presentation. Thank you
so
Laurent.
much. Thank you so much, Nadia. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a fabulous week. Go there with passion. Understand that it's all stories and chemicals that you say to yourself, and learn that, you know, this can change and you need to make the first step. Remember what I said. That's the last thing I want to leave you with. The first step creates movement, energy, creates traction, momentum, and progress. Basic physics. As simple as that. All right. Well, take care. Thank you, everyone. And I look forward to connect with you outside of this space. Have a fabulous week. I want to take a snapshot of the screen, if you allow me. If you show your beautiful faces, I want to take a snapshot of the screen, if you don't mind. And just 3, 2, 1. Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to connect with you outside of here. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.